The night I buried my brother's secret, I never imagined I'd be digging up my own grave. I can still feel it, the weight of that shovel in my hands, the way moonlight caught the blade as I stood in our family's backyard, dirt caking under my fingernails. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I destroyed everything I loved to save what little remained of the truth. It all started 6 months earlier at my father's 60th birthday dinner. Nothing seemed off at first. You know how family gatherings go, right? Same mahogany table where we'd celebrated every milestone since I was a kid. Same crystal glasses Mom insisted on using despite Dad calling them too fancy for regular folks. Same forced smiles we'd all perfected over the years. My brother Marcus sat across from me, his wife Jennifer beside him, her hand resting protectively on her barely visible baby bump. My husband David squeezed my knee under the table, our little signal of solidarity we developed over years of family dinners that felt more like theater than celebration. To 60 years, Dad announced, raising his glass. The chandelier caught his silver hair just right, making him look distinguished, powerful. And to family. Always family. We all clinked glasses. I caught Marcus's eye for just a second, and something flickered there, something dark and urgent that made my stomach drop. But then he flashed that charming smile, the one that had gotten him out of trouble since we were kids, and I told myself I was just imagining things. God, I was so wrong about everything back then. The first crack in our perfect family portrait appeared 2 weeks later. Mom called me at work, and I knew immediately something was wrong. Her voice sounded thin, stretched like wire about to snap. "Sarah, can you come over? Don't tell your father. Please." When I got home, I found her in the kitchen, looking somehow smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her hands were shaking as she pushed an envelope across the counter. "I found these in your father's office," she said quietly. They were hidden inside a book I was dusting. The photographs inside weren't the kind you want to find. My father with a woman I'd never seen. Younger, beautiful, laughing in his arms outside some beach resort I didn't recognize. The dates written on the back spanned 5 years. 5 years of lies, of Mom making his favorite meals and planning anniversary dinners while he lived a completely separate life. "Mom, I started, but she cut me off." "There's more." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The woman in those photos? She died 3 months ago. Car accident. And your father has been different ever since. Guilty. Paranoid. Sarah, I think something happened that night. Something he won't talk about." The kitchen tilted around me. My father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me down the aisle, who preached about honor and integrity at every single family dinner. What was he hiding? "We need to confront him," I said, but Mom's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "No, not yet. We need to understand what really happened first. Because if we accuse him without knowing the full story..." She trailed off, but I understood. If we were wrong, if we jumped to conclusions, we'd destroy our family over suspicion and grief. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe. So I agreed to wait. To watch. To become a detective in my own father's life, which felt both necessary and completely insane. 3 days later, Marcus texted me asking to meet. Not at his house or our parents' place, but at our old elementary school. "Come alone," he wrote. "Need to talk. Important." When I arrived, I found him sitting on the same swing set where we'd spent countless afternoons as kids. His expensive suit looked ridiculous against the worn metal chains and wood chips. He didn't even look up when I approached. "I need to tell you something," he said without any greeting. "About Dad. About his business." Our father owned a successful real estate development company he'd built from nothing over 30 years. It was his pride and joy, his legacy, what he'd always planned to pass down to Marcus when he retired. "What about it?" I asked, settling onto the swing beside him. Marcus finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes stopped my breath. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "It's all fake, Sarah. The success, the money, all of it. Dad's been running a shell game for years, moving debt between different companies, hiding losses in complicated paperwork. We're not just in trouble, we're bankrupt. Worse than bankrupt. We're criminal." My heart started hammering. That's impossible. The quarterly reports, the profit statements, are complete fiction, Marcus interrupted. Beautiful, convincing fiction that I helped write. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the stomach. You knew? You've been part of this. I didn't have a choice. His voice cracked, and suddenly he looked less like my successful older brother and more like the scared kid I remembered from childhood. Dad said it was temporary, that we just needed to weather a rough patch. But it kept getting worse and I kept lying, and now. He dragged a hand through his hair. Now there's a federal audit coming. And when they find what we've been hiding, it's not just Dad going to prison. It's me too. Jennifer, the baby Sarah. I'm going to lose everything. Part of me wanted to hate him right then. Another part, the part that remembered him defending me from bullies and teaching me to drive in Dad's old truck, couldn't quite manage it. There has to be a way out, I said, though the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. Marcus shook his head slowly. Dad has a life insurance policy. $2 million. If something happened to him before the audit. He let the sentence hang in the air between us, poisonous and tempting. Jesus, Marcus. You can't be serious. I'm not suggesting anything, he said quickly, too quickly. I'm just stating facts. That's all. I went home that night and told David everything. We sat on our bed in the dark, just the streetlight filtering through the curtains, and I laid it all out. Dad's affair, the dead woman, Mom's suspicions, Marcus's confession about the fraud, all of it. David listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for so long I thought maybe he'd fallen asleep. Finally, he spoke. I think your family has been lying to you about more than just business and affairs. My blood went cold. What do you mean? He got up, went to his closet, and came back with a folder I'd never seen before. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, emails, all with Marcus's name on them. I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, David admitted. I should have told you sooner. But I'd noticed some irregularities in the business dealings I handled for your father's company. I thought Marcus was embezzling, setting up your dad to take the fall for everything. I stared at the documents, my brain struggling to process. But Marcus just told me Dad was behind everything. Marcus is a liar, David said flatly. He always has been. And Sarah, I think he's been planning something terrible. Then 2 days later, Jennifer called me, crying so hard I could barely understand her. He's going to leave me, she sobbed. Marcus. He said once the baby comes, once he gets what he needs from this situation, he's going to leave us both. I drove straight to their house. Jennifer met me at the door, mascara streaking her face, and pulled me inside quickly. There's more, she whispered, glancing around like Marcus might appear any second. Your father's girlfriend, the one who died? She wasn't just his mistress. She was Marcus's business partner. They were planning to take over everything. The company, the properties, all of it. But she backed out at the last minute, threatened to expose them both to the FBI. The room started spinning. Are you saying? I don't know what happened that night, Jennifer cut me off. I don't know for sure. But Marcus came home with scratches on his arms and mud all over his shoes. And he made me swear never to tell anyone. He said if I did, I'd lose everything, including our baby. Every thread was weaving together into this nightmare tapestry of betrayal, so complex I couldn't tell where one lie ended and another began. My father, my brother, my family, everything I thought I knew was dissolving. I couldn't sleep that night. Or the next. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to find the pattern, trying to understand who was lying about what. Finally, I made a decision. I called a family meeting that Sunday. Everyone came, Mom, Dad, Marcus, Jennifer, David. We all sat in my parents' living room, the same room where we'd opened Christmas presents and celebrated graduations and pretended to be normal, and I laid out everything I'd learned. Someone needs to start telling the truth, I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. Because I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the secrets. And I'm so damn tired of pretending we're a normal family when we're all hiding something. The silence that followed felt like it might suffocate us all. Finally, Dad spoke. Sarah, you don't understand the full picture. Then make me understand. I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of it. Tell me about your affair. Tell me about the business fraud. Tell me about the woman who died. Tell me everything right now. What happened next unfolded like a nightmare in slow motion. Dad stood up slowly, his face pale. The affair, yes. I'm not proud of it. But Diane, that was her name. She wasn't just my mistress. She was working with Marcus. They were planning to steal everything from me, to push me out of my own company. He looked at Marcus with such pain in his eyes. Your brother's been running a con on me for 2 years. Marcus jumped to his feet. That's a complete lie. You're the one who started all this. I covered for you. Dad roared, louder than I'd ever heard him in my entire life. I've covered for you your entire life. Every shortcut, every lie, every betrayal. I cleaned it all up because you're my son. But Diane was going to destroy us both, and that night. He stopped, his voice breaking. That night, things went horribly wrong. You didn't just cover for him, Mom said quietly, standing up now too. Everyone turned to stare at her. You were both there that night. I followed you. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. I saw you arguing with Diane, Mom continued, her voice steady despite tears streaming down her face. Both of you. I watched from my car. I saw her threaten to go to the authorities. And I saw what happened next. The argument escalating, the struggle, the accident. I watched her fall. And then I watched you both panic and try to cover everything up. The room exploded. Marcus started screaming that it was an accident, that nobody meant for anything to happen. Dad collapsed into a chair with his face in his hands. Jennifer was sobbing. David pulled me close as the family I'd known my entire life disintegrated right in front of my eyes. But I wasn't crying. I was thinking. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Here's what's going to happen, I heard myself say, my voice cutting through the chaos. Everyone stopped, turned to stare at me. Marcus, you're going to turn yourself in. For the fraud, the embezzlement, for whatever role you played that night. You're going to accept responsibility for once in your life. Sarah, I can't. Marcus started, but I cut him off. And Dad, you're going to do the same. You're going to face what you've done, accept the consequences, and stop sacrificing everything to protect someone who doesn't deserve it. You can't possibly understand, Dad began. I understand that you chose Marcus over Mom. Over me. Over the truth. I understand that you covered up something terrible because you couldn't bear to let your son face his own mistakes. What about you? Marcus spat. You think you're so perfect? You're just going to walk away clean while we all burn. No, I said quietly. I'm going to live with the knowledge that my family was built on lies. That the people I loved most were capable of terrible things. That's my punishment, Marcus. Living with the truth. What happened next unfolded over months. Marcus did turn himself in, eventually, after Jennifer gave him an ultimatum. Dad cooperated with investigators, providing evidence about the financial crimes and that night with Diane. The details that emerged painted a picture of desperation, greed, and tragic accidents compounded by cover-ups. Both faced charges, Marcus for fraud and obstruction, Dad for similar crimes, and his role in concealing what happened to Diane. The business collapsed. The real estate empire Dad had built over 30 years became a cautionary tale in business journals. Mom filed for divorce, not out of revenge, but because she needed to remember who she was before she became someone who kept secrets for love. The trials were long and painful. I sat through much of it, watching my father and brother face the consequences of their choices. Marcus received 5 years. Dad received 8. Jennifer had her baby in December, a girl she named Hope. Mom moved to Florida, started painting again like she'd done before marriage and kids. She calls me every Sunday, and we talk about art and weather and anything except the past. David and I are still together, somehow stronger for having survived the implosion. 3 years have passed since that explosive Sunday. I still think about that dinner sometimes, Dad's 60th birthday, the last time we were all together pretending everything was fine. People ask me if I regret forcing the truth out that day, if I wish I'd let the secret stay buried. The answer is always no. Because those secrets were poisoning us long before they exploded, eating away at every genuine moment, turning love into performance and family into fiction. I've learned that real love means holding each other accountable, saying the hard things, refusing to enable the people we care about when they're walking down dark paths. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone face the consequences of their actions, even when it breaks your heart. My father chose to protect Marcus at any cost. Marcus chose self-preservation over honesty. Mom chose silence over action. And I chose truth over comfort, knowing it might cost me everything. In the end, the only thing I lost was the illusion, and illusions were killing us anyway. We're all broken now, my family, scattered and separate. Maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. But I'm learning to be okay if we don't, because some foundations are too cracked to rebuild. And that's the real lesson. Truth is more important than comfort, and sometimes burning down what's broken is the only way to build something real.